Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and some of them will be personal, some of them will be cricket related, or I should say, perhaps most of them are going to be cricket related. But so one question for you guys is that you guys both went to very traditional backgrounds, right? You did engineering, went to do your MBAs, and then you start working, right? And you start working, and then that sucks you in, and then it's very hard to leave what you're doing because it's a stable job. You've grown up in a middle class environment. That job is of value to you, and it's not just the job that you have on that day. It's the job that will grow over time, and it comes with a certain level of income and stability and so on. Now, how did you guys take the decision to chart a very different path? And at what point in your journey did you decide on a personal basis that I'm going to go down the path less trodden, and that I'm not going to do a typical traditional thing that my background would imply that I would be doing, and that I would be like the hundreds and thousands of other people who've done the same thing? So when and how did you go through that sort of that discovery process and learn about yourself that you wanted to do something different?
It happened at different times for the two of us, Sumant. Honestly, I could do it because Anita was the stabilizing force
Hmm.
in our family.
Hmm.
There was an income coming. There was a lot of stability that she was providing, and to be honest, salaries in those days. I mean, after 5 years from my Ahmedabad, I was earning 5,000 something a month. So you're not really losing that much, but we kept our wants very low. Neither of us was in love with making huge amounts of money. We were very happy to live within our means. And so we said, chalo karke dekhte hain. In Hyderabad, there is this saying, karke dekho, yahan zyada kya hoega.
Hmm.
So we said, chalo karke dekhenge. And we could karke dekhenge because there was a stability at the other end. And then one thing led to the other, the career grew. And we said, okay, can we combine our knowledge of management with sport? And that's when Anita was essentially a hardcore quant person. In typical families, there are these stereotypes, right? Guy engineer, so he must be the quant guy. We are exactly the opposite. Anita's the quant person, and she actually for a long time didn't believe. She thought I was making up my engineering degree, that I didn't actually have one.
BA
So
history.
there you go. See, so then
Some history pass, I would imagine.
when we wondered whether we could combine our knowledge, that is when Anita then came in, and we were able to take the winning way to where it is today.
The winning way really has come out of our lives, Suban.
Hmm.
And I mentioned a line, don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. And we have lived that line in our own ways and in different ways. So Harsha for a long time was asked, and even now he's asked, how much
Yes.
cricket have you played at the highest level? Now, if you keep harping on that, then he would have never got into commentary.
Hmm.
So he figured out his own life, and he said, no, I'm going to focus on what I can do. There are many things that I can do better than the other people, and so that's where he focused on. uh, for me, there were many things I couldn't do because I had a traveling husband, and we couldn't really sync our calendars because his calendar was synced to the BCCI calendar, not mine. And
Okay.
I don't know how many women you have in your team, but it was very difficult. And so I did whatever was possible, and like he said, karke dekhenge. The hard work, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a bit of a chance to take, no, because you go
Yeah.
off into something totally different, and it may work out, it may not work out. If it doesn't work out, then
But we
maybe
don't have investment
come
like
back.
you. We don't
Sorry.
have to. We didn't have to invest anything. It was just ourselves.
Sure, I agree. I agree. No, so let me move on to the second
Yeah.
question. Vaishali and I, Vaishali is my wife. She's on the call as well. So the two of us also work together in the same company. We also live together, obviously, right? And so very often you end up talking about work all the time. Obviously, you talk about work in the office, you talk about work at home, and uh, and so it ends up being a very big part of your life. And sometimes you just wonder, so there are two questions there actually. One is that, do you feel the need to get away from it all at some point in time? Because I don't know whether how much you guys talk about work at home or not. And the second thing is, how do you manage your relationship through all of that?
Okay, let Anita
Because
answer
I'm
the
sure you have
first one. I'll
professional
tell you the
disagreements
second.
on things. Yeah.
Yeah, let her answer the first. I'll tell you the second.
I don't think I know two people who are so in love with what they do, I mean, Sachin was like that. Harsha is like that. They just love their work. And so work is play. And I don't know, my children fear his retirement because there's nothing else he loves. So for him, he doesn't want to get away. I do multiple things. And so I get away.
Okay.
And he gets away. So that means I also get away.
But I think for two people to work together and live together, there have to be 2 or 3 basic principles. And one is trust, one is honesty. The third is respect. So if you can trust each other, if you can be honest to each other, but more than anything else, respect each other's skills. I'm aware that I cannot do what she can do. She has an extraordinary ability to look at information, put it all together, see that it flows, and has a fabulous work ethic. I tend to say, "Chalo karke dekhenge," and just use a certain ability to wing it through. Whereas she, being the more organized person, will say, "No, it has to be like this." And that's how we have worked together. But we don't interfere with each other's skills. We realize we've got different skills, but there is a lot of respect for each other's skills. And the children have seen it, One day I told our children something, and they said, "Are you sure? Have you checked with mom?"
It's a good partnership.
They only said that once to you. My kids said it all the time.
Yeah. But respect, I think under at the bottom of it all is respect. Yeah. And if you're traveling a lot, then trust and honesty.
It's true of all partnerships, isn't it?
That is true. That is true. No, and I think you rightly say respect is very critical. You do need to have that between partners. And I think that, in our case also, it's somewhat similar as in your case, which is that I'm a little bit more of the winged variety, and Vaishali is a lot more, let's think through this very carefully variety. So anyway, okay. So moving on to another question. Two questions for you, particularly this time, Harsha. So, you are a celebrity in the sense everybody sees you on television all the time, right? And you have situations where, and so therefore for us, for example, because we see you so often, you don't see us naturally, but we see you, right? So we have this feeling that we know you, okay, because you're there on our TVs so much. And so do you have they approach you with a sense of familiarity as if they know you?
Yes.
And you don't know them at all, so they're like total strangers to you. And so how do you deal with that kind of a situation? So in some ways, that's question one. And question two of that is that watching cricket live is a lot of fun, of course. But when you do that morning, evening, and night, like so many days, one after the other, does it get boring at any time, or do you find that every day is like a new, perfectly exciting day, and therefore it's all like starting from scratch?
The second one first. Yes, it is. Every day is exciting. I mean, if you're paid to look at Virat Kohli run down a chase, then it never gets boring. I mean, you get to watch Sydney, you get to watch Brisbane, you're on the edge of your seat, and you have the great, extraordinary privilege of entering people's houses and talking to them. It is an honor and a privilege that I believe we must never ever take for granted. You cannot go into people's houses and scream and rant and abuse and shout, which is what happens every evening. I think when you go into people's houses, they are giving you the honor of entering their house, and so you must. And that is an honor that I get most days, right? So how can you get bored of people bestowing the honor of allowing you to tell the story of their game? But because there are nuances and you learn something every day, there's something you didn't know. Every day you're learning something. So I know I never get bored. I mean, I don't think Tendulkar got bored. I don't think Virat Kohli gets bored. Every day is something to look forward to. And I think they're blessed. One of the things we often say is not everyone can do what they love, but no force on earth can stop you loving what you do. The second, it depends on how people approach you. If they approach you, in a friendly manner and chat, that's absolutely fine. One of the things I learned because I was at IIM Ahmedabad, where I struggled enormously to make the grade, I realized there's always people better than you somewhere or the other. So the person coming up to you talks to you with respect, you respond with respect. In social media, they don't, you ignore them. So the bigger challenge is social media. The bigger challenge is not people meeting you at an airport or a party or in a virtual session like this. It's on social media where they want to abuse you. But it's okay. People who abuse are sad. So you just grow a thick skin and you ignore them. The funniest story, though, happened once, just outside a hotel lift. And there's Lata Mangeshkar standing there, and I'm sort of, standing there from the distance saying, I want to say something, but what do you say to Lata Mangeshkar? I love the way you sing. Yeah. So what do you say? So I'm just sort of standing there looking at her, and she smiled and said, sometimes I think you're part of my family. Because she's such a great cricket lover, and that just broke the ice. And I said, man, you don't just sing well, you just made me feel great. But that happens sometimes. Yes. You get people who are aggressive. You get players who are aggressive to you sometimes, but you live with it as part of the job.
Okay. And so, another question. All of us have a lot of superstition about the way we watch cricket, right? So, for example, when India chases, like at Brisbane or at Sydney when you were trying to save the match, I just didn't switch the TV on, right? I said, you know what, I'm going to check the score after every 1 hour and save myself a lot of tension, right?
Yes.
And all of us have these little things, right? And we all think that we're contributing in some way to India's performance. So as a commentator, you have to be there, right? You have to do certain duties. And even if you don't want to watch it because you're tense, you actually have to sit there and watch it. And then how do you remain professional? How do you keep your own personal desires out of it? If somebody hits a four, how come you don't sort of jump up and say, the guy had a four, great, Pant hit a four, or if you lost a wicket, how do you not get so totally sad about it? So how do you manage that professionalism and manage your own personal superstitions?
It's a tricky one because you are a fan too. You are a fan, you get caught in the contest. You see Ashwin and Vihari saving the game and you're saying 38 overs to go. Okay, 8 more. And then you get greedy and he says 6 more. But if I'm doing a broadcast back to India, that's still okay to get caught up in it. But if you're doing the same broadcast as going to Australia, England, everywhere, then you can't be seen to be taking sides. But it's peculiar because we have an emotional side. And as you said, a professional side would tell a story. But the people who are watching it emotionally. And so they will say, hello, Australian commentator, उनके प्लेयरों को praise कर रहा है, हमारा praise नहीं कर रहा, हमारा क्यों neutral, उनका क्यों वैसे, which has been told to me. And then when you talk about India, the Aussie guy will say, look at this guy, he's biased. You can't please everybody, and you respect the fact that people are watching it emotionally. I got a lot of flack in this series because I said at one point when Pant was 97 not out, I said, is it 200s? But there's so much brilliance in this innings that even if he doesn't get 100, this is better. But the story, because of the balls, got paused. And when I said this is even better than the 100s he got, India was in a break, but the rest of the world wasn't. So India only heard, even if he gets out at 97, and he got out on 97.
Right.
Guess what?
So commentator.
Right. So exactly. you have to live with that. But you also get moments that last forever. So you also stay around when moments happen that last forever. And so it goes both ways.
Right. Okay. So can I ask you some cricket questions?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So, the performance. So first of all, question on captaincy. Okay.
Yeah.
Rohit Sharma has won 5 2020 IPLs, right?
Yes.
Some would say he's a damn good white ball captain. Some would say that Ajinkya Rahane is a better red ball captain. He's calm, he's proven himself in multiple tests. And so a lot of people would say, therefore, why not separate the two and get Virat to focus entirely on his batting rather than, have him lead both the teams. And so I know it's a difficult question. If you don't want to answer it, I can understand.
No, that's a fair one.
A lot of people, if you do a poll of the 320 odd people in this group, a lot of guys would say, perhaps, that separating the two and having Rohit and Ajinkya as captains is perhaps a better thing than having Virat the captain. So what are your thoughts, to the extent you can have a thought on this kind of a topic?
It's a question that was asked of Tendulkar as well. And one of the questions we get asked very often, Anita and I go, is why wasn't Tendulkar a great captain? And one of the reasons is that when you're such an extraordinary player playing at a different level, sometimes the bar you set for yourself is so high that not everyone can match up, but you cannot understand why they're not matching up. One of the issues with Virat is that he is so passionate. He is so driven and he wants every ball to be the epitome of everything he plays the game for, that he sometimes maybe doesn't understand why everyone's not thinking like him. And so when you've got highly charged leaders, then they expect that the team should play the way they want them to play. And so sometimes that creates a bit of a dissonance because different people have a different way of playing it. And maybe people get a bit stressed sometimes. And it's an interesting one to ask of the players. I don't know the answer to that. I'm talking from the outside, that maybe sometimes they get a bit stressed having to live up to the expectations of a Tendulkar or a Virat or someone. And those expectations can be matched by Tendulkar or Virat. Rohit is a far more laid back kind of person. He's more likely to put his arm around someone and sit and chat and whatever. So they're very different kinds of people. Now it's up to you to decide, do you want the alpha male leading the pack? Or do you want someone who puts his arm around people and carries them along? So, I mean, if releasing Virat from the captaincy could get him to 100 hundreds, wow, why not? But will we lose him? So it's a tricky one. And I think there's a relationship between that and very passionate entrepreneur-driven companies where sometimes that the great knowledge of the entrepreneur and the great vision and the desire of the entrepreneur may not be matched by everybody else. So it's not that Virat is not winning teams, winning matches. He's not won the IPL, but he's won enough matches for India. But sometimes I think his ferocity is something that he can live with, but maybe not everyone else can live with.
Yeah. So therefore, the answer is that we should or we shouldn't do it.
I think if you lose Virat, it's too big a burden. He's this alpha male. And the truth is that this team that Ajinkya won with was also to some extent created by Virat. I wouldn't want to give up Virat at this stage because I think the team will come apart. The other thing I've noticed in him is that the Virat of 4 years ago, who was so individually driven and demanding performance, is giving way to a different Virat. And it reminded me of something Saurav Ganguly told me. He said, captains take time to learn.
Right.
He said, in India, we give captains the time to fail, but not give them time to learn from their failures and become better captains. And I think actually Virat will become a better captain because of all that's happening in his life. He's married a woman who's making him feel great. He's realizing there's a world outside. He's a man in love. He's had a child. He's becoming softer. I think he'll become a better captain. So I'll stay with him.
Okay, cool. Now, another question. In terms of leadership, you did talk about leadership, and leadership in a cricket team or in any team for that matter, where you play for your country or you represent your country, is a little bit easier because there's no question you are loyal to your country. You've grown up that way. And so therefore, there is no questioning that, right? It's a given. It's just a question of how best to orient that loyalty in a way that serves the interests of the team. In the case of a company, however, and to relate this back to our context a little bit, in a company, it's a little bit different. You haven't grown up thinking that I'm going to go and work in Renew Power and I have to make Renew Power the best company in the whole world, right? And so how do you create some elements? You can't create that same kind of situation, I would imagine, but how do you create, or if you, to the extent that you've thought about this, how do you create some of the same elements of that kind of loyalty towards a vision? Especially in a situation where you have people who change over time. You don't have the same people 10 years later that you started with 10 years ago. So people come and people go. It's kind of similar to what happens in a team because of performance issues and so on and so forth, or somebody new comes along. But there, as I said, the loyalty factor is a lot stronger. The objective is much clearer. It's win or lose. Here, the objective is not as clear, creating value for shareholders or for the country. There's a little bit amorphous. So in that kind of a context, to the extent you have any views, either of you, about that, how would you think that companies should go towards or go work on creating the same kind of team spirit? Is that even possible at that same level?
Sport is a wonderful metaphor for life, but one of the shortcomings in dragging that metaphor too far is that I decide I'm going to bat first today. Difficult conditions, I'm G'd up my team, we're going to bat first. Is it a good decision? Is it a bad decision? I know within an hour. Sometimes I know within a day. And so you can course correct very quickly, or you can discover the outcome very quickly. That doesn't happen in, should I set up a power plant in Bulandshahr or should I set up a power plant in Jaisalmer?
Yeah.
You don't see the outcome of that very quickly. So in sport, the advantage is you see the outcome. So you are a series of fast moving decisions. in sport. But the larger issue of making everyone feel great about working is a very leader-driven thing. We see that more in the IPL than in the country. In the country, when you're playing for India, or you're playing for Pakistan, or you're playing for Sri Lanka, or you're playing for England, there is that common factor. It's something you've dreamt of playing. Have you dreamt of playing for Mumbai Indians? No, I mean, you might have in course of time. If you have a 100-year legacy, or Manchester United has a 100-year legacy, the New York clubs have a Los Angeles Lakers has a legacy. But what these people are very good at doing is, in the time they're not playing, they're constantly in touch with them. They're constantly making them feel great about playing for Mumbai Indians or playing for RCB. And as soon as they land, they put them in that environment where they're now no longer New Zealand. They are Mumbai Indians. And that is something that these teams have been very, very good and successful at doing, even though they know that 2 months later they're going to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's like the gig economy, where you're more married to your role than to the organization. So if you're just happy being doing the best that you can for whatever project you're part of or whatever assignment that you get, then I think that is achieved. Yeah. But I think in big companies, it's a big challenge, because in a cricket team, for example, it's very small. And so people are together, but this thing about your big goal somewhere, and how does the smallest guy kind of identify with that role and feel that, I'm also contributing to that role. So it's like the typical pit stop situation. I mean, even that guy is important, right? If he starts feeling, I just have a chota role, then it's not going to work. That guy also has to be made to realize that you are contributing to the goal in some way.
It's a great parallel, actually. The guy at the pit stop says, but Lewis Hamilton has to win the title, not me. Instead of 2 seconds, I take 6 seconds. Lewis Hamilton doesn't win. Nasir Hussain told me something interesting, Suman. He said a captain is sometimes necessarily distant from his team. And all captains need great ambassadors. He said, I had 2 ambassadors in my time. He told me a story of Graham Thorpe and Darren Gough. He said they would go and tell the players, you know what? This Nasir is onto something here. He's doing something right, which is very different from him saying, this is what I'm doing. I think I'm doing it right. And he said, if you have a plan for your team, you must have ambassadors that are not you. Ambassadors within the company who are taking your message further. He said that's what worked for him.
Okay. Yeah, you just have to make sure you don't become too transparent about it. Otherwise, you'll get lost.
Yes.
Yes.
People are clever.
Okay, look, I know there are other people who also want to ask questions. So I don't know how much time do we have, Ravi? Because I can keep quizzing both of them overnight.
I'm enjoying this. I'm sure, so it's fine.
So
since Harsha and Anita are enjoying it, maybe we can carry on for a few more minutes. It's 7:15, so maybe another 15 minutes if we can.
Okay, so I'll just ask you one other question, then I'll defer to my colleagues as well. So Steve Smith gets auctioned for 2.2 crores.
I know.
Glenn Maxwell gets auctioned for 14 point some crores. And then Steve Smith is captaining Glenn Maxwell the next, when they play for Australia. How does Steve Smith keep his resentment against Glenn Maxwell having got 7 times the amount of money for the same effort away from from the way he captains him, or the way he deals with him, or the way he relates to him?
The IPL, with its unparalleled money power, is raising all these questions. I mean, there's a young kid who plays in Chennai. His name is Shah Rukh Khan.
Yeah.
As it turned out, Shah Rukh Khan was bought by Preeti Zinta's team.
Right.
But Shah Rukh Khan is bought for 2.5 times the money that Steve Smith is bought for.
Yeah.
I think they're aware now that this franchise T20 cricket, as opposed to national T20 cricket, is a completely different animal because of the constraints involved and the role that overseas players have to play. The basket of skills that you possess comes with a price tag. So the basket of skills that Steve Smith possesses in the T20 game, as opposed to the skills in the test match game, where he stands unique. But the skills he brings to the T20 game are replicable skills. Whereas the skills that a Glenn Maxwell brings, even though buying Glenn Maxwell is, as people with multiple marriages will tell you, it's a triumph of hope over experience. Every time you buy Maxwell on hope and he never delivers, but hasn't yet. But the basket of skills he brings in a shortened form is, I can turn a game around in 10 to 12 minutes. I can come and give you 2 overs. So I'm bringing a basket of skills that is rare. Chris Morris wouldn't get into anybody's test team. He brings a basket of skills that is very rare. That has a value. And I don't know, there are different skills as well. I mean, there's someone who can sing for 3 hours and from the alap and bring the rag, develop the rag and beautifully. And there's someone who dances and lip syncs and earns 5 times the money.
Yeah.
But what you mentioned about then going back to Australia and then saying, you earned 7 times as much as me, requires a great man to say, look, that was a different kettle of fish. This is different. Luckily, in this case, Steve Smith is on such a large Cricket Australia contract, and Maxwell is just in and out, but it can create all kinds of issues. Genuinely, I mean, this Steve Smith is Ajinkya Rahane and Shreyas Iyer is captain of Delhi Capitals.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a demand supply situation and no reflection on your self-worth. If that is understood, then I think, otherwise the Pujaras of the world, how much did he go for? 50 lakhs?
Yeah.
It's just no justice at all.
So Anita, a question.
The other thing, Sumant, the other thing
is
Steve Smith has gone from 12.5 crores to 2 crores.
Yeah.
And the general impression is the team that bought him may actually not have wanted to. There are auction dynamics at play. I don't know if you've been in those situations. I'm sure you have. The team that bought him maybe didn't want him. Maybe they were just hiking up the price for someone else's budget to get lesser, and suddenly realized, oops, they pulled out.
Right.
So that can happen too.
Yeah, of course it can.
Auction dynamics, it's very peculiar. The pricing of a player in a mini auction is something nobody can study.
Yeah. No, I was just curious about the relationships that how the players get impacted by some of those things. Because the money.
But sometimes Steve Smith gets impacted. It's embarrassing for Maxwell as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir.
Okay. So, Anita, a question from Vaishali for you.
Yes.
Which I think you've just responded to.
I just responded. I've got 2 sons, Sumant. Yeah. So I'm happily in the 4th position, and so not worried at all. No, I do follow the game, but these people are crazy. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. There's Vaishali.
Hi, Vaishali. Hi.
Go on, Vaishali.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you. I had a question which has been well answered. And I just wanted to say that this was really a very, very engrossing session.
Thank you.
We're still carrying on. So if you have any other question, Vaishali, please go ahead. And otherwise,
I'll give the renewers an opportunity to engage. So thanks.
So let me ask the question that first question that had come from Khushwinder. How does a solid test player like Dravid or Pujara innovate to become a T20 star? And is it sometimes necessary to innovate? Would it be better to be a specialist? And and there's also this question about team selection, right? Now we suddenly have a Washington Sundar. Was it a right decision to have selected a Washington Sundar, even though he scored an 84, 85, instead of hiring or selecting a specialist bowler? So, so I think Pushpinder's question is around that.
And what about Nadeem? Actually, that was a pretty odd choice as well.
Yeah, there you go.
Especially when you had Kuldeep Yadav sitting and had been sitting for such a long time as well.
There you go. I'll give you a very cricketing answer to that. England came here from Sri Lanka, where they had this wonderfully named bowler called Lasith Embuldenia, who was running through their openers for fun. And so they said, no, we want a left-arm orthodox spinner. A left-arm spinner would spin the ball away from the right-handed batsman. And so Akshar Patel, because Jadeja was injured. So if Akshar Patel plays, Washington Sundar doesn't play. If Akshar Patel had played, Kuldeep Yadav would have played. But because Akshar Patel got injured, they now needed that batting at 7. Because on some pitch, you just need that tail to get extended. And it was Washington Sundar and Ashwin and the others who actually saved those test matches there. So because they wanted that batting there, they brought Washington Sundar in. Now, the moment they bring Washington Sundar in, you can't play Kuldeep Yadav because all of them are turning it the same way. So Shahbaz Nadeem comes out because he can turn the ball the other way. So it's not a question of whether Nadeem is better than Kuldeep, but whether that balance is achieved with all of them in the side. That's how Washington came in the side, as someone who can do a bit of this and a bit of that, which is not normally something you see in Test cricket. It's a very English thing to do. A bit of this and a bit of that, neither of which adds up to too much.
But shouldn't you just take the best spinner in the team rather than whether he's taking the ball in or taking the ball out? And those are the kinds of decisions that sometimes are taken that lead people to this question of, why not somebody else?
you know, if you have someone who's turning the ball away from the batsman,
Yeah.
then the shots that he can play are completely different from when the ball is turning into him. And so they always wanted someone to turn the ball away. You saw Akshar bowled on that track where the ball was turning. So they always want one to turn away to the right hander, one to turn away to the left hander. So the moment Akshar became available, they played the same team that played the first test.
Right. Okay.
So that was the one. I think there was first question was about adapting to from test to T20.
Right.
It's a really tricky one. You know, we didn't have that much time today, but one of the things we talk about is, can you change your mindset? The Dravids, the Pujaras, ingrained in them is, I am Dravid, I am Pujara, you Ravi P, you can't get me out. Because you're only Ravi and I am Pujara, you can't get me out. But you go into T20 and you say, you know what, I've played 25 balls, I've done my role, the best thing I can do for my team now is to get out. Because I'm scoring 110, the guy in the sheds are all scoring 140, what is the best thing I can do is get out. It's okay to get out. How can you tell somebody like a Tendulkar, a Dravid or a Pujara, it's okay to get out? That is the change in mindset that they have to achieve when they come to T20.
The unlearning that I talked about. Somebody asked a question on that as well in the chat. That's the kind of unlearning is far more difficult than learning. You know?
Yeah. Unlearning is so tough.
Yeah. So the next question is from Sapan. He says, Harsha, you meet cricketers day in and day out. If you were to be a cricketer, where would you want to be?
Where would I want to be?
Which cricketer would you want to be if you had a choice?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I would have liked to be. I love people who make the most of what they have. I'd like to be a Dravid or a Kumble because everyone wants to be a Tendulkar or a Kohli, but that's infeasible. Those people only arrive in very rarely, very occasionally. So I would have liked to be a Dravid or a Kumble. Yeah.
Okay.
I once said when I retire from my profession, I want to retire with the reputation that Rahul Dravid had. So I don't know if I ever can.
Sure.
No, I think Dravid is from. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Good.
I was just going to say, it'll be nice for the renewers to switch on the cameras and ask a question of Harsha and Anita. Perhaps more satisfying.
Yeah, no, I'm just doing that because, of connectivity, it just gets sometimes. But we can try that out.
Yeah, let's do that.
In the meantime, a very nice question from Rahul Sharma. That one of the most underrated commentary calls Harsha did was during Sachin's last moments in Test cricket. How did you maintain your composure when the entire nation was crying? What were you going through? You were absolutely brilliant, but I think wants to know how.
We have Rahul on the screen. You can say hi, Rahul.
Yeah, where's Rahul? Rahul.
Hi, hello.
Rahul.
Big fan, and I'd just like to know what were you going through when everyone was weeping?
You're such a kind man because you've asked me such a nice question. It's very rare that you get thrown into a situation like that. I wasn't on the commentary roster for that. There was a young producer who said, who's the right person for this? And I knew Sachin from the time he was 14. So I could experience, in a sense, I knew what he was going through. And it helped me that just an hour earlier, I'd done an interview with Anjali Tendulkar there. And Anjali spoke her heart out she said, I don't know how this man is going to manage once he's done with the game. But I knew that he was going to go back to the pitch because I knew exactly what he felt about the pitch. I'd known him since he was 14. But you'll find a little bit of emotion comes through there. And if you notice, I normally speak very fast. And I'm normally, a little rushed, but there I was just, I don't know what vision came into me. I just let the pictures speak because the pictures were telling such a beautiful story. Everybody's crying. You'll find a little emotion there as well. And so you'll find that I've spoken very little over there, which also allowed me to think of words, but not a single one of those words was scripted.
Arjun, you want to ask your question? Arjun Mehta? Okay, but I think he has a question here, which I thought was very interesting.
Arjun Mehta is a very interesting name because
he says he's unable to unmute.
Okay.
Okay. It's a very interesting name because the Arjun who just got selected for Mumbai Indians, his grandfather is a Mehta and his father is a Tendulkar.
Okay, good one. So his question is, the captain, are you there, Arjun?
Yes, Ravi. I think I got I got finally connected. So thanks,
Yeah.
and everyone, apologies for my hair. This is how I look at home.
Enjoy it while it lasts, Arjun. Enjoy it while it's there.
Thanks, Harsha. Harsha, Anita, firstly, pleasure to see you face to face here. The big cricketing fan as well, and I think some sort of an historian like you as well. I think that Anita mentioned. So the question I have, and the analogy that I would like you and Anita to bring out, into the professional world is this: when there are 1 billion potential cricketers in India, or when there are thousands of ambitious employees, let's say in a company like ours, how would a captain, or in our context, how would a professional leader have to differentiate when he or she is prepping the next leader in the pipeline? How does one inspire the next big innovator, or kind of facilitate the creation of the next big headline maker? Does he or she as a leader develop everyone alike, and aim at honing everyone's skill in the same manner? Or is there a specific differentiator as such, that a leader has to follow?
Because a tough question, Anita will answer it.
No,
The easy
so
ones I will
are
get.
you saying who is the person who you're going to choose as the next leader?
Excuse me, I'll just come in a minute.
Is that what you're saying, Arjun?
Yes, exactly, Anita.
Who would make a good next leader?
Absolutely. How would the leader get to choose as such, when the choices are so many, 1 billion potential cricketers or thousands of corporate employees?
Yeah, so I would look at what the situation is and what kind of a leader does that situation demand. And the second thing is, not everybody makes a great leader. So there are some people who just enjoy leadership and they thrive in that. And they might be great performers, but there are some people who are great performers but don't who kind of get weighed down by captaincy or leadership. They don't make great leaders of people. So I would look at that, because it's not about your own performance. It's really about vision and taking the getting the best out of people, taking the company forward. So I would use those kind of things to decide on who would make a good leader.
Yeah. Also, Arjun, sometimes the leaders find it very difficult to separate their role as performer and their role as leader. I remember a conversation I was having with Saurav once, and he said, I know Rahul is going to be the next captain, and I've told him you've got to be able to separate your role as captain and your role as batsman. You might not be scoring runs for 3 test matches in a row, but you still have the right to demand performance from everybody. You can't say I'm not scoring runs, so I can't demand performance. You still have to, because that's your other role as captain. Can you separate your roles? And it's very, very few people who can do that. Anita's spot on. Some people get weighed down by leadership. Some people get buoyed up by leadership. But the great leaders will create an environment where everybody wants to come in. And Alex Ferguson did that at United over the years. Phil Jackson did that in basketball over the years. People want to come and play for them, and then they create that environment.
Okay. I think we have time for one last question. Pankar, I've unmuted you. Can you ask your question?
Ravi, you have to ask a question too.
No, I will. But Dipankar, I think your question was also a good one. So,
thanks, Ravi. So, firstly, Harsha and Anita, both, I would like to thank you for conducting this very engrossing session, and I would like to thank the team at Renew, which managed to get both of you here for this session. So, thanks to both. I've been hearing about this whole concept of sports to corporate lessons from my friends. They have had people like John Buchanan or Steve Waugh coming to their organizations, and I was always jealous. So today, I think I'll catch up with them and tell them I've got even with them. So thanks to the Renew team there. So, but my question is that and this is something which has always intrigued me. In India, cricketers almost enjoy a demigod status, right? So they are they're worshipped, literally worshipped by people most of the time when we are winning, and these days we are winning. They earn a huge amount of money. I mean, you can just play IPL and earn crores. Like, you don't have to even play for India anymore. So you lead a luxurious life. We keep hearing about the after parties and the parties and the endorsements. Today you're with Narendra Modi. Tomorrow you're with the Rashtrapati. Day after tomorrow you will be at Amitabh Bachchan or Shah Rukh Khan's residence or Ambani's residence. So amidst all the glamour and fanfare, how does one manage to stay grounded and focused and motivated? I still have to go to bed early and go to practice at 8 a.m. tomorrow and put in those 3 hours. or whatever. So since you are close to many of the cricketers, and so any best practices?
Because their life is as insecure and as high pressure as yours, even more so, because if you fail in an environment of 10, maybe 100 people. They fail in front of a few million people. So their small failures get magnified. They are as insecure as you are. They are as worried about life as you are. And remember, what you're seeing on the picture is the very, very fine tip of the pyramid. Very few people can get there, but they are also aware that the moment they slip from there, nobody's looking at them. It's a very peculiar star system in India. The moment you're not playing for India, you'll be standing in a corner at the airport and nobody's coming to talk to you. And so living with that insecurity that if I don't perform, it's nobody's going to look at me is very, very difficult. And so the best players in the world are able to say, I will put the rewards, I will put the glamour, I will put the perks aside. And they're able to compartmentalize their lives and say, if I continue taking the wickets, if I continue scoring the runs, everything else will come. It's just a more modern manifestation of what the Gita said very famously to people, that you keep trying and take what comes your way, but the very best are able to cocoon themselves and not think about everything, all that comes. It's very peculiar that the moment you play for the rewards, I've seen this so many times, the moment you play for the rewards, the runs dry up. It's amazing how that happens, that you keep the rewards away. Alan Border once told me, you take care of the runs, the dollars take care of themselves. But it's amazing how often you take care of the runs and the dollars appear. It's amazing how often you chase the dollars and the runs dry up. And you start to wonder, why is that happening? Because now you're playing for the wrong reasons. You're playing for an end that may or may not be in your control, and the end always strangles you. The path never strangles you. The end always strangles you. And when you play for the end, you always lose.
Thank you. Thank you.
But for focus on performance, as you said in your presentation as well, don't focus on the end results beyond the point. Just focus on doing the best that you can.
You can if the end is in your hands, but in sport the end is rarely in your hands.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen next. You might suddenly get run out. Your partner might get out. If you can focus on what you are doing, very often the end will take care of itself. And if it doesn't, you go back home saying, you know what, I gave my best. I can sleep well. I gave my best. It's more philosophy. I think if you're the kind who loves results, it doesn't sit very well on you. The shrewd people all know how to get to the result differently as well, but they are geniuses. I mean, I remember Brian Lara once was asked about playing Murali. Brian Lara played Murali better than anybody else. And they said, how do you play Murali? He says, because I know where he's going to bowl. They said, how do you know where he's going to bowl? Because I make him bowl there, he says. That only very, very few people can do. Tendulkar, Lara, very few people can say, I know I'm going to get there, and that's how I'm going to get there. The others say, I'll keep doing what is best and I'll take the result.
Great.
Good. Thank you. This is actually a perfect way to end a lovely session with Harsha and Anita. The next time we see Harsha on TV, we will have a personal connect. I'm sure all of us would actually want to physically invite him into our houses, not through the television, but actually that once this pandemic is over, and if there's an opportunity, we would certainly have Harsha
Love to.
physically. Harsha, if at any time you want to visit any of our sites, let us know. It would be a great pleasure to show you a wind site or
I'll tell you one of the sites I love when I'm driving on highways. I don't know if it's what I read as a kid. I love seeing windmills.
Yes. So
I just love seeing windmills. I don't know what it is.
So we have the largest number of windmills in India of any company.
Yes.
We have almost double the number of windmills that anybody else has.
They're so sleek. I mean, the windmills we saw in comics compared to the windmills, they're so sleek. I mean, I've actually turned around like that in a car because I've gone past the windmills sometimes.
So since you're in Ahmedabad and you just had Balram Mehta on his photo was just coming up, but windmills that you'll see between Ahmedabad and when you drive on the outskirts of Ahmedabad, many of those windmills would be owned by us. So, but anyway, so
I'm not tilting at them though.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Okay, so from a time perspective, I just need to be respectful of that.
We can have a match, Ravi, which can have Harsha,
Yeah. We can do that. We can have
someday when we're out and about.
Yeah, just so that you know, our internal cricket tournament is actually called the Renew Premier League. RPL, right? So thank you so much.
Pleasure.
We need to let Harsha and Anita go on with our second part of our program. So thank you, Harsha, and thank you, Anita.
Thank you both.
Stay for the
Thank you,
second
Suman. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Anita.
So much
Thank
fun.
you.
Anita, thank
It was
you.
so much fun. It's a good
Thanks,
format, this. Thanks. Pleasure.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.